Hi everyone, thank you for clicking in. My name is Rod, and in this video we're going to discuss some of the tips and tricks that personally worked for me that enabled me to get into better universities, and my hope with this video is that it will do the same for you guys. So literally what I'm going to talk about in this video is 3 factors that I personally would do if I had to go through community college again, because as you guys know, I went through community college and transferred to UC Berkeley, which is one of the top universities in the US. So without a further ado, let's get into those 3 factors. And I personally have done it myself. I've seen results from it, so it's not just me coming out and tell you guys stuff about something that others have done or I've heard or I've read somewhere. No, I literally have done it and have seen results from it, and that's why I want to share with you guys, because I think you guys can take advantage of it and get into good universities as well with the help of that and many other factors. So I put together a list of 3 factors, as I mentioned, with a couple supplementaries to each factor, which we're going to discuss them one by one in this video and get deeper into them. So one of the very first factors that we're going to talk about in this video is going to be making sure that your teacher will distinguish you from other students, and we will get into how I have done it, and probably is some of the methods that you can also copy and that will help you, or you can come up with your own methodology. And then second, I will then focus so much on working nor participating in different clubs. And I know that a majority of counselors will tell you, especially in high school and in community college, that you should participate in different clubs and do volunteer works. Now I will tell you what was my perspective and how it worked out for me, and why I would make such a claim that if I would go back just like I did, I would not put so much time in volunteering and participating in different clubs. Now the third factor for the last part of the video will be basically talk to my counselors as much as I can as a community college student. Again, if I had to repeat the whole thing again, as well as talking to people who sit next to me. Now it doesn't matter what were their age range, because as you guys know, in community college people come there from all sorts of age ranges. We have people who have kids in their late 40s, late 50s, even some older people will show up into these classes, plus the regular or average high school students, or those who have a late start after a year or two of high school will show up. So it doesn't matter, just start a conversation, and I will get into why it matters, especially on top of having a conversation and discussing everything with your counselor. So let's get into all these 3 factors. And before even getting to those, if you are new to this channel, my name is Rod, and I migrated to the US about 8 years ago with my family as an immigrant, and I personally wanted to go, just like success to me meant going to one of the top universities in the US, which thankfully I was able to do that. And now that I've graduated, I really want to give back to my community, because again, when I moved here, I didn't know people that I could ask for helps and tips and tricks. Plus, I didn't know very much about how the system works, nor I knew the American culture or the language. So I really was lost going through these different educational levels, and didn't know what I should look for, what I should do, and etc, etc. So hopefully this channel will become a community where we can give back to one another and help each other grow. At least that's the hope with this channel. Alright, so without further ado, let's get into these factors. So I would make sure, definitely, which I have done without knowing it, I would make sure that my teachers know me very much in compared to all the other students. And what I mean is that, especially when you come to the community college, majority of students, they focus on working and coming to college. So what often happens is that they just go to the class, if they have to, and that's very important. They just go to the class, and immediately afterwards they leave, and they make sure to just turn in their homeworks. Again, we have different types of students, but hypothetically we'll say that they'll make sure to turn in their homeworks, and that's about it. But what I did is that I made sure that my teacher really knows me. And one of the methods that I use, which in this section of the video I'm going to talk about three, one of the methods that I use is that especially after the first day of class, I will stop by and let everybody leave, and before the teacher exit the class, I will approach them and be like, "Hi, my name is Khodamarad Muradpour, but I know it's very hard to pronounce, so you can call me Rod. I migrated here a couple years ago." I never would be specific about how many years ago I moved here or how many years it's been since I've been living here, because I didn't want to give them so much background of me, but I wanted to make sure that they know my language proficiency is not as good as someone who was born here. That was my main goal by mentioning this sentence. Now the following sentence was that I know I'm an immigrant student and my English is probably not as good as many of your students here, but I'm very passionate about this subject and want to be successful in your class. Now this is a very important thing that is coming up. I would put them this impression that look, I want to be successful in your class, so what would be some of your recommendation for someone like me or in my situation? So I really would put them in this place that if you do your psychological research, you will see that it often will bump up people's confidence and basically this feeling that they like you when you do that. So I would be like, hey, what would you say that someone like me or in my shoes have to do in order to become successful in your class? Now again, that sentence will give them another vibe as well, that this student really wants to be successful. So I will make sure that I communicated that with them in the very first day of the class. Again, it will show them that my English is not perfect, so their expectation level will be adjusted. And then second of all, it will show them that I'm serious, I'm here to be successful, and I really care about this class and the materials that is going to be teaching here. Now the second thing that I would often do is office hours. Now I know office hours is something that is pretty new to many of us high school students who just go or start their journey at community college, but office hours is basically a time that a professor or the instructor will have for students to come by and ask about any questions that they have or any concerns that they have. On top of that, they can even talk about some of their interests and how those will cross path with everything that the teacher is basically teaching or instructing in the class, and basically ask for some of the projects and etc. etc. But again, those are the extreme cases. Majority of cases, people just show up to ask for help, especially when it comes to the finals or midterms. Now I will highly encourage you to show up to these office hours. I did, and in majority of the times it was only me, and without knowing, I will receive all those participation grades more than any other student in that class, which definitely helped my grade towards the end when it came to the final grades and etc. etc. Plus it will give them and by them I mean the instructors, this ideology that look, again, he is very serious, he cares about the topic of the class. And I often had one or two questions in my hand to ask them to really show that, look, I reviewed the material and I'm here to answer those questions, or I'm curious about some of these materials that I have read. Now that was the second thing that I did. Again, I highly suggest that you guys will go to the office hours. You won't believe this, but as soon as you will show up, it's like you will see the glow in their face, that how much they like it when the student shows up in their office hours. So please do so, get these extra points. And even if there aren't points that are offered to you by just showing up to the office hours, you can build a great resume and picture in your instructor's head about who you are and how much of a caring student and successful student you are, that basically care about their subject. Now the third thing that I would do often is that I will start these small talks before the teachers leave the class. So usually when we talk about the different subject, and for those of you who don't know, I'm majored in poli-sci and mathematics in community college. It was different majors when I was in university, so we will get into that in a different video. But So what I would do is that, especially with my poli-sci classes, when we hit on different subjects, I will make sure at the end of the class, or every other class at least, like meaning once a week, I will, like, after the class, wait until people leave, and like when one or two people are left, I would just like approach them and be like, I really like this scenario, so what would you say, like, this country or that dictatorship will go based on the categorization that you just explained? Like, where would you place them? And questions with that matter, just to show them that I really care about everything that has been mentioned in this class, and I had a good understanding. And guess what? In majority of cases, they were speechless that a student will stop by, that they will care so much about the subject, that will bring up like questions about it. And sometimes I didn't know. There were like cases that I didn't really get the subject correctly, and guess what? They will correct me right away, and now I had a good idea about the subject and a better understanding about it, which will help me with the finals. So that's another way to really show them that you care about the subject, for one, and then second of all, you really want to be successful in the class. And for me, when I started community college, I should have mentioned that in the beginning of the video, but for me it was just like, just get the grades and then you will get accepted to a good university. Because to me, still to this day, the argument that I will make is that getting accepted to majority of these amazing universities is just a math game, or a numbers game, as they say. So as soon as you have the GPA, it just doesn't matter if you have as much as volunteer work. And I did that, and I was able to get into the university that I got into. So definitely for me, everything was great, and I knew if I make that perfect impression into the teachers, that I care about the subjects again, and I really want to be successful and get good grades in your class, I eventually will get them. And so that was one of the very first thing that I did. Now the second thing is that unfortunately during the community college, one thing that I noticed commonly is that majority of the students, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, they were working on the side of coming to the class, meaning they will come to the class and often taking full credits, and then working often, if not half-time, full-time. Now there's nothing wrong with that, and before I even get to this point, I want to mention to you that we all come from different backgrounds, and I myself come from a low-income background, so I definitely understand that if some of us have to work more than others. But one mistake that I often saw is that, or I should say noticed, is that students will overwork or work so many hours just for that $15 an hour in order to, get a little bit more extra money to have that, wear that nice pants, or have that nice watch on their wrist, or etc, etc. These like little accessories, which I would highly suggest that when you're in your 20s, like, people do not have that high expectations from you, so don't be all about driving that nice car and etc, etc. Why? Because you have time, and instead of working more hours for that little nice thing to wear or to impress others with in your class, you can put that time into turning in your homework with more details, which will end up giving you a better grade. And those grades will get you into different universities, and better universities in this cases, which will put you at a much nicer and easier place in order to get a better job in future. And guess what? When you go to these nice universities and have a better chance of getting these great jobs at $45 to $60 to $75 an hour, that $15 doesn't really matter anymore. So that was a common mistake that I will see. A lot of my friends will show up with a very nice clothes, but when it comes to like turning in their homework, they often didn't have it, nor they didn't put as much as time or effort as I did into them. And again, I was working full-time when I was a student, so it's not that I'm just mentioning this because I wasn't working or I'm come from this rich background. No, I worked too, but I made sure that I had this balance in between, like the work that I was supposed to do for my school and how much time I had to dedicate to working. So don't work too much for that $15 an hour or to look nice. Instead, put that time into, taking care of the homework or study harder for the midterm and final, because that will pay off. And often, I should mention that, and often nobody will hit on those points, is that often when you go to these great universities or transfer to these great universities, you will have higher chances in your junior year to secure a very good spot with these amazing companies even when you're a junior. Okay, so I had many friends who were working for Tesla and other amazing companies when they were in their junior years. So don't give up that chance for that extra 1 hour that you work and receive that $15. Okay, I hope that's clear. Second factor that will go with this option B that we are talking about is that I've seen that a lot of students will just like do volunteer works that they didn't like, and they were just like doing it because they were advised by their counselors or other people, especially family members, that you need to have a volunteer hours and etc in order to get accepted to all these good universities. Now again, it's very important to have a wholesome application, but if you don't like that volunteer work that you're doing, if you don't like the club that you're part of, all those times that you're spending being part of those clubs and not putting it toward like studying for your midterms, finals, or taking care of your homeworks, that's the most, I would say, wasteful use of time that you're doing. And it's much important to invest that time into studying and taking care of your homework. So please, if you love what you're doing with these clubs and your involvement with these different organizations as a volunteer, do that. But if you don't like them, don't do them just to have it in your resume. That's my advice. And again, a second factor that I've seen a lot of my friends were doing, and basically they were wasting their time instead of to invest it in their studying. And now let's get into the third factor. The third factor is that I would, if I had to do this again, and I did it a lot, is that I would go to my counselors at least 4 times a semester and talk to them about my goals, about how my classes are going. And it's very important because these counselors are very busy. So the more that you keep touch with them, and basically remind them of your goals and where you want to go and how you're doing in these classes, the more they will have the chances and options to give back to you with these different resources that they know, because eventually you only have like 20 minutes to 15 minutes to talk to them. So you have to keep meeting them and remind them of your goals in order to be provided with these different opportunities that exist within your community college. For example, I didn't know what the TAG program is, which if you don't know, I will get into it in a different video. But from me going to these counselors' office multiple times a semester, I was able to find out about them and other programs. Now, on top of that, I want you guys to have a great, or start a conversation and have some sort of a connection with people that sit around you, because they can often be amazing resources for you and give you advices that necessary counselors don't know about opportunities that exist in your community college, which you can take advantage when you are applying to universities. For example, in my case, one time I asked a guy that was sitting next to me, so where were you? And he was like, oh, I went to the scholarship office, which I've never heard of that. We have a scholarship office? And he was like, yeah. So guess what? I showed up there. I was like, this is my GPA, this is my goal, and they told me that there's a Jack Kent Cooke Foundation scholarship, which I highly recommend you guys will go check it out. After that, I was able to apply for it, and I got accepted as a semi-finalist. So basically there were multiple levels. I was able to get into the semi-finalist, and that's a huge achievement, which I can talk about it in my resume and different applications. But guess what? I only was able to find out about it by talking to people around me. So please, on top of talking to your counselors, talk to people around you, those who sit next to you. There are huge gems that you can take advantage of. Alright, now that we are towards the end of the video, I really want you guys to know that I want the best for you guys, and these are the very top 3 advices that I have for community college students, and but there's a lot more into this, and hopefully I will talk about them into different videos that I will put out through this YouTube channel. So stay tuned and like, share, and subscribe if you find this content useful and if you want to be part of this community. Now, before I say goodbye, I just wanted to recap about the 3 points that I mentioned. 1, make sure that your instructor distinguishes you or knows you much better than all of the other classmates that you have. 2nd is that don't prioritize working nor going or participating as a volunteer or part of these clubs over your studying when it comes to homeworks especially, and midterms and finals. And lastly, make sure to take advantage of your counselors and people around you. I'm talking about those friends and those classmates that sits around you and you never talk to them or say hi. So these are the 3 points, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until the next time, peace out.